The Sober Sojourn's 12 Steps and Passport Stamps podcast features recovered men and women who are practicing members of Alcoholics Anonymous. We do not claim to represent Alcoholics Anonymous or any 12-step program. We are friends gathered to discuss our experience in recovery. The discussions in this podcast represent our own individual experiences and opinions as of today. You can reach us at our email address, which is sobersojournspodcast@gmail.com, or on Instagram at OyveyAA and Such a Sally. We would love to hear from you. Our aim is to try to be helpful by sharing the realities of our recovery, how we have recovered and are trudging the road of happy destiny wherever we go.
Pirate Mike and OyveyAA presents The Sober Sojourns, 12 Steps and Passport Stamps podcast.
Sober Sojourns, 12 Steps and Passport Stamps podcast. Why are you laughing? I'm making for such a great introduction. Hi, I am OyveyAA.
And I'm Pirate Mike.
And I think we're very excited today. Today, we are all in this interesting vibe as we're kind of going into this, but we're very excited because we have our very good friend and first guest on this podcast to close this first marvelous season with us.
Hello.
Folks. Do you want to introduce your fake name to the world?
I is Morbid Reflection, and I'm so grateful to be here with you guys. Morbid was actually the name of my great-grandmother, so it's a family name. Yeah.
How does that work?
So
are you Morbid Junior, or is it because you skipped a generation?
So
I believe it's the third.
I think I'm the third. And Morbid is actually my nickname. The full name is Morbius.
Oh, I see.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like the Greek.
That's me, I was for this.
We have to get used to this, but I feel because the barrage of weird ass fake names that we're gonna get, because next season, which is I guess this is the official announcement or whatever of that there is gonna be a next season of this. We are gonna have people with weird names, but I feel yours kind of takes the cake. Big book thumpers will understand.
Real fans will know.
Yeah. There was so much
ones.
there. There was the big announcement that the network renewed our contract, which is great to hear. and single-handedly you excluded 3/4 of the audience because they're oh, I'm not a real one. What is this?
All the meeting makers have left the building.
I was my intention with the name is actually for people who know, and they're why did she name herself this? Because before I was a big book meeting maker, and as you know, I was listening to the podcast and people had these weird names. And I'm what does this mean? And I'd look it up and it's a direct quote from the book. And then I'd read parts of the book that I'd never read before. I'm whoa, the book says that? It says that I can think. It says that it's okay for me to think.
Yes. The ancient story of a person getting introduced to the big book through a podcast greater than yourself. I try to get people introduced to the Torah and real scripture through this podcast. So we'll see how we do.
Exactly.
How's that working out?
I have people arguing with me about the New Testament, but that's every day. I feel I need to make a little disclaimer because your internet is well, no, don't laugh, Pirate Mike, because listen, someone needs to edit this and it's not going to be perfect. I'm not shitting on you or your internet. I'm just stating a fact. God, I'm going to stop talking.
You know what? If my higher power didn't want me to have horrible internet, then I wouldn't have given it to me. Okay? All part of God's plan. I'm supposed to have terrible internet. And actually, it's good because sometimes I'm on planes and snow will cover the Wi-Fi router. and then this big lofty long share I was gonna cuts.
Right.
And that's usually like, I feel like my Wi-Fi connection is directly connected to my higher power connection. Like when I'm sponsoring someone and I go on some like long-winded nonsense and they're like, hi, I didn't catch. And I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't supposed to say that. Okay, now I'll say something else. Like, or I don't know, like simplifying it, cutting it down, not talking as much. Apparently that hasn't stopped me this time. Here I go again. But yeah, the Wi-Fi is.
I feel like we can all relate to Wi-Fi issues.
Yeah.
Besides, Mike, are you in New York right now? I'm sorry, remind me again.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm not. And actually that's a very important issue that I think that Sober Sojourns tries to like shed light on, is the realities of people living in less developed nations and the internet problems, snow covering the Wi-Fi router or the antenna. It's not something that, you know, I experience here in New York City. I don't live in fucking New York. What are you talking about? But here we are.
I feel like out of the three of us, if we just rank, I feel like you have the best Wi-Fi, right? Like connection. Would you say that's accurate, Pirate Mike?
Today it is. I was just talking to somebody about it. So when it is working, it's fine until like a cargo truck hits a utility pole, and then it's just gonna go out. So like with everything else in my life, it is all or nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's either or. It's either here that we have no water for 3 days or no internet for 3 days. And I feel like it makes me a bad person that I prefer no water for 3 days. Like I need my Wi-Fi. I need my little TikToks and my little things and my little Instagram. Hashtag OyveyAA, hit me up.
All the comfort zones, all the creature comforts.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, but the reason why, first of all, you're good friends with the both of us. At least in my head, we're very good friends. But one of the reasons I really, we thought about having you on is because you do live in a very interesting place. If Mike is in Philippines and I'm in Central America. The reason why I don't say where I'm in Central America because I'm the only Jew where I live. So I'm like, I'm not gonna attract this kind of it's very easy to figure out who I am if you know where I live, because people care apparently. Anyway, but you do live in a very interesting place, and we kind of want to stop laughing. He's just like
Right.
laughing at what I'm
It's
saying.
really it's the mob of fans. That's no, but I get it.
Ay,
So yes, we want to hear about your journey as a fellow traveler, literally and figuratively.
My journey.
Yeah.
My journey.
How do you end up in the part of the world where you are?
Okay, yeah, I'm also okay. I don't want to specify exactly where I am, just because I'm like one of maybe 15 Americans here. So, simply because it would also be very easy to find me. And I'm one of like two blonde girls that I know.
You heard it here first. Morbid Reflection is blonde.
I'm blonde.
Your suspicions have been confirmed.
I am in fact blonde. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Goodbye.
That's so interesting. I thought there would be more blonde people in Latvia, but oh,
I thought so too. Sure, we'll go with Latvia. I can be there.
Yeah.
I could actually be in a lot of places. There's a lot in Central Asia, like people, what's that like slang that the kids use? They like look over it or whatever. I feel like
Stop
there's
it.
a word. I'm
Don't-
too old.
Don't tease me.
use-
Don't tease
The
me about talking
kids
about
use-
kids.
Actually, this is our fault because we have brought. I'm also is it a Gen Z? Is that how you say it? A Gen
We're-
Z
we're
or a
Gen
Gen
Z.
Z? Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Gen Z. I don't know. Let's say
Gen Z.
what's
For
the
the
way?
Europeans, it's Gen Z.
I grew up with saying Z. Fuck you. Anyway, we're both Gen Z, so I feel like Pirate Mike might be feeling a little attacked. Yeah, there he goes.
A little attack.
We're Gen Z, but inside, I'm 80-year-old man inside. Like when I was telling people, so I am from the US. I'm a blonde woman from America. Ooh-wee. So unique.
So uncomfortable right now. I can see it.
We've brought her into our minority podcast.
Let's do
Yeah.
it. I know, I just don't want to like, because nobody can see my face. So I don't want to misrepresent that I'm like cool. So I was moving and several people were like, "Oh, like be careful when you're over there. You know, you look so unique and different. Green eyes." And I'm like 5'8", and the man here is 5'5". I'm like towering over, and I'm very tall and blonde and whatnot. And I was like, come on, guys, it's like the 21st century. People have seen a blonde and chill out. But this place is a little bit different than somewhere like, I don't know, Japan, Taiwan, like where there's tons of not a lot of people want to come here long term, but still, as Mike said, a developing country. A friend of mine actually recently told me a term, it's becoming, which I really like. Because it is like it's growing, but it used to be part of the USSR, unofficially, and it became a democracy 30 years ago.
How many years ago?
30.
Oh, that is new.
Where I live based on that, then get to know. That's a little secret. You should, if you know the history of this place. But there's definitely been some foreigners, but most people don't come here. And they have seen blonde people, but they were Russians, like back in the day. So then when the USSR, dismantled, all the blonde people left, and now blonde people are back. And I'm very much still an oddity here, which I was not prepared for. I get stared at a lot. The kids are either enchanted with me or absolutely horrified. Like they do not know what to make of me. And I try to think about it from their perspective, and like I can't, they probably think I'm a ghost,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I remember having the same experience in Africa. I'm like, am I a ghost? Like, do you actually think I'm a ghost, like the little kids? And it fucks with your head, but I can't imagine like I can't imagine it like long term, in a place you live, in a place you now call home. Or I'm assuming are calling home now after a while. It's wild, like that whole journey. And I feel like you are living proof. Me and Mike, we joke about it in terms of like, the AA stuff, but you're living proof of like the polar ice caps kind of thing. You know what I mean? When was the last convention where you were at?
The last convention in my country.
In your life.
So first, to answer your question, there was a convention in December to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the creation of AA in this place. Because it was created in 1998.
Yeah.
Wow.
Before that, they did not have Alcoholics Anonymous.
I didn't even know that you actually had AA there.
Yeah. Okay. So
you guys were born then, right? 98. No, that's a straight question. No, you're not.
I was born in 99.
I knew it.
I was born in 98. Mike is having an existential crisis as we're speaking.
Yeah. It is fine. It's great. This is literally, I don't know. I don't get the whole like age thing sometimes because there's like, I don't know, 1-year-olds out there right now who just simply exist, and in 20 years I'm gonna be like, oh my God, like I can't believe you were a baby. It's like, yeah, like people keep getting born.
People keep getting born.
You don't understand the outrage. I love it. But isn't it weird that people who are like, I don't know, actually, this is a very valid and like a sane opinion to have. But I'm like, if I meet someone who's 18 and they were born in like, I don't know how to do math. You know what I mean? I'm like, you're whatever.
2006,
Thank you.
2006. Most of my students are 18 right now. So they're
Oof.
like, yeah, I'm 2006. And like, I do the little thing where I'm like, oh, that's so young. But I don't know. That's more of just like a cultural thing now than an actual, if that makes sense. Like, I do it because we all do it. We all have to be like, oh my gosh, that's so young. But I'm like, yeah, it's okay.
It is.
2006. I don't know. I'm still kind of young. Maybe it'll change, but okay, wait, going back to AA in this country,
Mm.
they were not allowed to have organizations that were based around God. So that is part of why. And like there were definitely chapters in Russia and the USSR, as one says, but it was so difficult. So they've translated a lot of the literature into their language. There is a huge fellowship here, but
Oh,
it's
cool.
all in the
Wow.
local language. So there was one English meeting in the entire country that I went to for the first 5 months I was here. And I'd have to get up at 5:30 in the morning on Fridays to go stand outside in negative 20 degrees Celsius weather to wait for the first bus. Then the first bus would drive me an hour to this place of work for these two women. And I'd always end up being late because traffic is horrible. And the three of us would sit in the office and we would speak in English and Russian, because there's a lot of Russian language influence still in the country. Like all the adults, Russian and their local language. Um, and then I stopped going in December because it got so cold that the buses started catching on fire. So I was like, I can't deal with that at 6:30 in the morning. Um,
The bus is caught on fire because of the cold.
yes.
That's wild.
Mm,
You see,
yes.
Pirate Mike, you and I, we think we're like exotic, that we have like, we deal with issues here. We don't get water here, sometimes Central America. Morbid Reflection is like fighting off like fiery buses.
Well, it's like the like I mean, kind of pun unintended, but like polar opposite, right? So all my problems have to do with like obscene heat. And
Yeah.
you're like, it was so cold that a bus caught on fire. I was like, what is that like?
Yes,
So cold.
yes.
This
Oh,
winter
wow.
here, they've had in 50 years,
Wow. Okay.
which I didn't know. Uh, there was like a solid 3, 4, 5 weeks where it was on average negative 40 degrees Celsius. Um, Fun fact for our travel listeners, with Fahrenheit and Celsius, when you get to negative 40, that's where they meet. So negative 40 Celsius is negative 40 Fahrenheit
What?
because it's so cold that it doesn't even matter.
That's what they decided. That's what it sounded like to me. Like, did they just say like, fuck it, it's the same?
Like it's
Oh man, I love this
same
fact.
thing.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
But because there were several instances for us as we're, talking, when we text or whatever, when I'm like, is she gonna be alive after tonight? Because it's so cold. But there you are.
I spring up like a cockroach. Yeah, nothing can kill me yet, except maybe a
Yes.
hopeless state of mind and body that almost did kill me.
Boom.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
there
right.
we
I
go.
mean, like the alcoholic is an example of handling incredible extremes, it's kind of cool in a different light. Yeah, so there's fellowship here. I used to go to that meeting. I don't anymore. But alcoholism, like this country is ranked fifth for like worst alcoholism in the world.
There's a ranking?
Uh, Apparently so. I've never actually looked this up. Somebody told me. I'm like, how do you measure like alcoholics per capita? And because also like they don't define alcoholic the way we do in AA, like because they don't know phenomenon of craving, they don't
Right.
know the mental obsession. They're just like this person gets really drunk at night. Um alcoholic. But like, no, I mean, there are people. There's just like, also I want to state I adore this country. I adore my friends here. I do love my life here and I've built a life here. I want to recount my experiences, but I don't want to sound like I'm complaining or like, oh my God, can you believe that like this is what it's like here? Like, I don't know. Not
Yeah.
complaining. These are just things I have observed. There's truly no judgment behind them. And like I said, I love this place and the people. Um, but I'll just walk on the street every day and there's just like pools of vomit
Oh yeah. Okay.
everywhere. And then in the winter there was frozen vomit, which was better, because then it like didn't run. And it was kind of interesting because you could like observe what was in the vomit a little bit more. But yeah, like I've been chased by a drunk man before.
Oh.
Yeah, like it's just very common. Um, and drinking is so common here. Uh, like I think I've told you guys this before, but I had a bad cough because there's intense problems with pollution here. I had a bad cough in the fall, and my coworker was like, "You should take a shot of vodka because like that'll warm your blood up."
Right.
Yeah.
And when I had stomach problems, vodka.
It certainly, I think goes to show like that it's not a stereotype that the colder the country, the more people drink. Again, I'm not sure about this ranking. This is very interesting to me because a part of me thinks that it must be like consumption based. But again, they don't define it as we do. Interesting, very interesting stuff. I mean, God, frozen vomit in the streets, dude. You're like a badass though over there. But how does it feel to you? And I totally understand the preface. Sometimes I talk about places and I feel like I'm shitting all over the place, and yet I mean, I did a whole thing about America, and I fucking, we both adore the States, and we ended up, Pirate Mike doing like an hour 15 minutes of shitting on it. So I understand the preface. My question to you is, do you have experiences there where you're like, oh, I'm here, I have this solution, I'm a recovered alcoholic, they have their own kind of thing, their own fellowship. Do you get to like work with people there, or is the language barrier a big thing? Or like, I'd love to hear more about that kind of experience.
Yeah. From what I've observed, because I've only seen a very portion of it, and I don't want to be able to say that I can speak for all of AA in this place, but it's very fellowship based. Um, and people don't really do fourth steps here because gossiping is such a common part of the culture. People are too
Oh.
afraid to share their fourth step with other people. And
Okay.
yeah, because I met a
Huh.
third woman who speaks English, who's local, and she like drove me home one night from a meeting in a like basement shelter built from the Soviet era. It was such an interesting meeting. We had to walk through this crawl space to get into this basement. But um she was like, yeah, I used to have this like British woman who was her sponsor, and then that woman moved away, and she was like, yeah, like I think I casually tried to ask, because I don't want to push my agenda on people, but I was like, oh, like, did you finish your step work? And she's like, no, I know I did a step 10, but like now I'm 10 years sober and I'm into sewing. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, okay. And I look like even back in the States, I'm young, and I offer to take people through the steps if they want to, but like completely disregard me. And people take it as an insult offer to help them
Yeah.
because I'm so young, like what is this kid gonna teach me? So I was like, okay. Just always
No.
kind of walking on eggshells because I'm not revered as like wise or old.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, I still get sponsees and like sorry, I still have a cold. I've had a cold for like
A perpetual cold.
Um,
Right.
so and go to the meetings with these two other women. In the meeting I had, we would read the daily reflection, and then we spent like the next 40 minutes talking about events and stuff. You know, like it wasn't that I was used to. It was
Yeah.
mainly about organization and like we're having this party come to, we're having this event come to this. Um, and I've been going through tradition study with somebody else in the program recently. I'm like, okay, like this is not my version of AA, but if they're staying sober or whatever. Yeah, like it's definitely not our brand. Oh God, no, not our brand. It's not ours. I'm sorry. It's the corner of AA that we're in the book.
Yeah. No, I
And
get
like
it.
yeah, tell me about your fellowship, Pirate Mike.
That actually came up. Yeah, no, I can relate very. So we were in a meeting yesterday, and so I was teasing this a little bit, and we'll get into it later, right? And I feel like I need to say this up front because it's gonna fuck with my ability to just get through the story. So unless Morby's attended any other fellowship events recently, the last convention that she went to, we actually attended together. So she'll know this. Like with the fellowship here, we were like I was just in a meeting at a place, a restaurant, a branch of a place where you and I ate once. And so
Oh, I love that
we
place.
were
Yeah.
sharing. I know it's so good. And we were sharing. There was this let's say old timer, but it was his first time attending this meeting, and the vibe of that meeting has become more big book and solution focused. So people were sharing openly about these things. And one of the remarks that he had when he decided to share, he was like, "I'm not used to this level of honesty. This is so refreshing." And I think that's your point, right? It's because people have been hesitant to really share what's going on, and how the solution's working for them because of the gossip culture. And just usual, whatever, I'm gonna fucking slogan sling for an hour, and then we're gonna go have coffee at some like posh place or whatever. And that's not everywhere, but that's certain spots here, right?
Yeah.
No, so I can relate to that. And when you say brand corner of I understand what you're saying. It's not setting itself apart, but it kind of is, because unfortunately, it's not the norm in a lot of places. We'll kind of ape. I still feel like AA is still this foreign concept that a large part of like this, the fellowship here is learning how to adopt and make into their own. And I'm actually seeing more of it after the convention that we attended, which is pretty cool.
Nice. That is really cool.
Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned your experience, like there are a couple of people who they're relatively new in terms of time, right? In recovery, but they know the program, they had the experience, they're talking about the book. But as human beings will do, they'll stumble every now and then in their personal experience. And it's interesting how quickly people with more time but are less familiar with the literature will be like, see, that person's full of shit. Like we shouldn't be listening to them because they just haven't been sober long enough. So
It's because we
there's,
worship time, we
we
worship
worship.
time, and heavens forbid, a young woman, who actually read the book will come and try to be helpful. But I don't know, fucking AA spaces are weird. You're talking about fellowship. I completely clocked out of the fellowship here.
I
Like
saw
I'm
that.
so done.
It's the perspective that people come into it. We had a visitor yesterday, who I could tell that so he came from Berkeley, and the first thing that he said, and I could tell he was uncomfortable, was like, "Oh, this is a very posh meeting. Like, I'm not used to this." And I don't consider the place where we were meeting to be particularly posh. It is well lit, and it's not like a church basement. But he was saying that I'm used to meeting in this kind of place, where it's like dark and dreary. And so I get that that's the comfort. I thought about that for a little bit because, being in a country that's not the US, we see Americans come in, I'll see Americans come in, and I'll just think, same, or like, oh, maybe we'll adjust a little bit so that it can be kind of the same. And they come through with very different eyes, right? So just because this guy lives with all the creature comforts that they have in Northern California, doesn't mean that he's going to think like what we have to offer is going to be at the same level or whatever. So it's just that you bring your own baggage, and then
I
everybody gets
mean,
to adjust.
I'm not gonna. I mean, let me take it back. I have nothing against northern, southern California. I have friends who go to Berkeley. Uh, Morbid
Some
Reflection is
strong
making a completely
reflections. Yeah.
neutral face. But my point about this is there is a point to be said about dark meeting locations. I went to meetings in bomb shelters for a long time. I feel like Morbid Reflection, you can reflect. See what I did there? A little bit on that. But there is something about it, There's the scent of trauma is visible, visible, an
Get
English
it?
word.
Yeah. But not outside of, but like that's the experience of being there, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is like this was my norm, but then an outsider comes in, and then in my head, like my norm is kind of challenged, and I can have feelings around that. Because why shouldn't they understand? I'm trying to not bring this back to the whole like McDonald'sification of it, but like that's kind of where a lot of my outrage, frankly, when I experience it, is because of that. It's because of the discrepancy of like how other people, let's say like dominant cultures are perceiving me, and like what's going on here. And
Mm.
and the frustration with having to adjust to that as opposed to like vice versa.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, we certainly made a point in previous episodes about kind of the stereotypes and how do we live with that.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you, Morbid, in terms of, you said people were like, "Oh, don't go there," and stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure that their stereotypes are based on something. I experienced it firsthand, and I can say that about stereotypes that I experience. I am a self-righteous person. Okay, like I get why people think that about Israelis. Okay, I get it. The point is, like, do you get a sense of uh, what's the question? I guess the question is like, what is the perception of people? You know,
From my
of you.
country about this country?
Yeah, yeah. Or vice versa, even.
That's a great question. First of all, people from the US don't even know where the fuck I am. Am I allowed to curse? Have I cursed yet?
Uh,
No,
Please
nice.
curse more in this podcast.
Please.
Okay, so people don't know where the fuck I am. Like, I've told them, and I've told them, and I told them, and people said, like, I've had conversations with them, and they're like, have fun in Tibet, have fun in Malaysia, have fun in, like, somebody said Milan once. I was like, what makes
Ooh,
you think
bougie.
I'm in Milan? Like, no, Milan. I can't. Yeah, no, I'm like, no, I'm not there. People don't even know. Um, and started sharing in meetings home that I was gonna move. It's like some people who I had never met before came up to me after meetings and was like, I know you think you want to do this, but you're gonna drink. And it's like, you don't even know where I'm going. Like, like this woman, oh, I have a resentment.
Ding.
Ding.
Yalla, let's go. I mean, honestly, people have told me you're gonna fucking relapse and die, and
Yeah,
and knowing that you've had that experience, that if there is any
yeah.
point to this fucking thing, is to please get out of your fucking country and go. God is not stuck in Missouri, whatever, wherever you live. Sorry, I don't know what Missouri ever did to me, but you know my point.
But it can come with you. So I'll
Oh
jump in and
yeah.
say like, so this is a shared experience that Morby and I had, but with different perspectives. Like you and I sat in an auditorium where we heard expats speak, and they were very comfortable with each other, right? They're now all in a foreign land,
Yeah.
in a fellowship that, like, okay, was started where they came from. But then we kept hearing a lot of people come into the podium and were like, I'm so glad that these people have AA now. Or like, it's so good that these people are
Oh,
getting, and you know, so that's what I'm saying. So like, you can
yeah.
go to whatever reach of the globe, but then I'm there listening to it like, these people, you mean like alcoholics? But that's not what they meant. And it's still
Mm-mm.
that attitude. So the stereotypes can be carried.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I love you so much is because you're not there. Like, you travel and you don't bring that attitude. So there's
Yeah.
more understanding.
Sorry for making the silly face. I thank you for saying that. Like, I try really hard to not be the person I was raised to be and the
No.
society. Like, real talk. I try to not be the person I was subconsciously to be. Because that's not even who I am. But yeah, that's definitely something I also noticed in the Philippines. It's not so much here, at least in AA, because of the intense language barrier still.
Oh.
Like,
Mm.
um, there are some foreigners in the fellowship that I've heard of. I've never met them. They lived here at different times. Um, but AA is very much belonging to the people here. Which bars me out because I don't speak language well enough. Um, but like, so fucking what, you know? Like, I have Zoom, I have give meetings. It's not about me, it's fine. It really is. And yeah, I don't know if people from the US who come to have that same demand for be like home.
Mm.
That I noticed when I was in the Philippines, because like the Philippines is like beautiful and it's been open to tourism for so long and it's like built for accommodation. This place is not built for accommodation. They're trying now actively build it for accommodation, but like this is not a tourist, even though it's emerging into that. So
Mm.
I don't know, whenever me or my friends at like work or something, it's like, oh well, in the US, and by friends I like my American friends, like when a class starts at 5:30, it starts at 5:50, and then people are like, well, you're in blah blah, so like this is how we do it here. And they're not like being unkind or anything, but they're just like a very unmoving people. They're stubborn, and I'm stubborn too, and that's why we get along so well. But like there's I don't know if I see that much shame, and maybe it's they're just hiding it from me because I'm a foreigner, right? Like I could be
Mm.
like, this thing isn't here. That's because they don't tell you about it, Morbid. Like that's because I'm talking about it with you, dum dum. Like I'm like, yeah. But I don't know, like I actually had an experience in my three women meeting, including myself. We did the same stuff that you're talking about with the guy from California. We were making fun of the Korea. So I don't think this is just one culture, like
No.
making
It's just a people thing, yeah.
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Insider
Yeah.
outsider thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like I tried to explain racism in the US once to my students, and it's a completely homogenous like culture, and they're like, but they're like, teacher, we don't have racism here. And I'm like, okay,
Whoa. Whoa,
do you
whoa,
guys
whoa.
Is
do you
that
Bold
what
guys
they said,
statement.
really?
that's okay them because I've been doing my research. I was like, how do you guys feel about Chinese people? And they're like, and I'm like, yeah, that's like how the US was between two groups. And they're like, because
No,
like they do not like Chinese people.
I
Yeah.
can I
What were
can
you
relate. No, it's the same idea. I had a conversation with, I'm not going to say it's everyone, but I've had a couple of conversations with people who thought that, and because it wasn't their experience, that racism is something that is specific to white people and black people.
Right.
However you define those two colors, right? Like it's a very
Right.
American construct, and we're not going to get into it here, but similarly, when Disney rolled out with the Marvel movies, right? And then there was a
Mm.
lot of stuff that you read in the press about like the impact of a movie, say like Black Panther.
Mm.
It was almost hilarious how people were struggling with trying to make it relevant here without really knowing what that experience was like.
Oh, yeah, I understand what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
say.
Right.
It's the same where I'm from. It's like we don't have like we have our own issues. Like we don't think about it that way. But I feel like if there is one thing I need to take away from the last few weeks, that I want to stop talking about race.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, we're
Sorry,
gonna stop.
Like
We're gonna stop.
I've had no, please do, because we have had literally episodes about this. But I don't know when I had this conversation, but I told someone, oh yeah, I told a friend, a mutual friend of ours, that I feel like I people are so opinionated nowadays. I'm gonna try and be less opinionated.
Hmm.
I have been my opinion has been put out there on the interweb. You know what I mean? Like I need to back up. But there is a thing I do want to bring up, and let me know, you guys, how you feel about this, because I do want to hear from you more a bit, maybe a little bit towards the end, more about like specific things that I want to ask. The traveler in me wants to know. But it was interesting as we kind of approach this, we realized we were both in a very similar emotional state.
Mm.
And I think that goes to show, sometimes I hear people speak on these podcasts, or I have this certain perception of how this person's life looks like. And it's important for me to kind of bring reality into this. We say, yes, God goes with us wherever we go, and yet I feel like you and me, Morbid, we share this thing. Sorry, not to exclude you, Pirate Mike,
Mm-hmm.
from this narrative. I really don't. It's not what I'm trying to do, but I feel like we are both young women in foreign countries, and I have to fucking say, this week I have been completely. I have reached a point where I'm like, I am overworked. I feel like
Mm.
I don't. This is really, really hard. I love God and I love what I'm doing and I love my life, but like I'm experiencing difficulty here. I miss my family. It's been really, really hard. So I do want us to try, or at least open up the discussion to bring some of that realness into what we're talking about, because we're talking and we're laughing, and we are good friends and we do have fabulous lives, but also like, fuck, is this hard? Is this hard shit that we're dealing with, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. And I think about you a lot, actually, just like walking around. Because I do know that we're in the same age, place, and stuff, like, and going through experiences. Um, and I feel like when one travels, it's wonderful and I love it. But I think we really romanticize it a lot.
Hmm.
Yeah,
We
it's like,
tend
wow,
to.
you're like, you're here, you're there, like, wow, and the pictures, and wow, like you're really living. I compared to some dude that we all know and love, because we probably all know that dude in Ohio. He lives in Ohio anymore. But yeah, like, I love traveling, and it's also made me realize this year how much I miss my family and how very little I actually need to be happy.
Oh.
And like, I came here because I wanted to. And when I meditated with my higher power, it's like you're supposed to go learn whatever you're here to learn. Um, but I was definitely part of the motivation is like to show that my life is interesting and exciting and fun and worth it, or something. And I get into that feedback loop where I send pictures in our little friendship group chat and everyone's like, wow, so cool. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like doing such cool stuff. And I'll take pictures of where I can't get out of bed, depressed. I'm so overwhelmed. Um, and getting older, and those feelings of it's so fun to travel, but also I should be home, but also should I be settling down, but also like this and that, and wanting to
Yeah.
take God in everywhere with me. And God's not always there. Like, my spiritual growth is off the charts this year simply out of like survival based connection with my higher power. It's like I either do this or I am so totally fucked right now.
Yeah.
Whereas like when I'm with
Yeah.
my support system, I can like sit in my discomfort a longer, for better or for worse, because like I've still got stuff, but it's like there's been so many times this year where it's just been me and God.
Yeah.
And maybe that sounds really back home or whatever, but that did not feel beautiful in it. I was like scared. I get like more suicidal these days, to drink. Uh,
Oh
Another
yeah.
friend of, yeah, it's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, I know I can't drink, so like let's go
Yeah.
die.
Yep, yep, yep.
And those moments come, and sitting with them and trying to be when I'm here in this life, exciting place, and most people don't get to go here, or knowing that like stuff's going on back home. But no, like it's not all wonderful. And I've also felt shame for not feeling wonderful the whole time.
Mm.
Because everybody, I tell people, yeah, I live in blah blah, and they're like, blah blah, like that's so cool.
Mm.
And I'm like, yeah. I also like don't know. I question growth all the time, and I'm doing okay, and I wonder if I'm measuring up, and I wonder if my efforts at this present moment are going to lead to me being okay in the future. All that's going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, I live in blah blah. Like, ooh. Um Now I'm romanticizing home, that I'm away. Because I've always got to romanticize something, When I'm home, I'm romanticizing being away. And I missed Christmas this year. Like, this is the first time I've ever missed Christmas in my life. Um, I don't even care that much for Christmas, but I really loved Christmas this year all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So that's a joke. But yeah, I was like, man, I really want to go home. And then I think about all the stuff that I don't like about home, and hard stuff about home. And I miss my family. And that's the part where like I really start to think about you, actually, because I'm like, I get into my fear and stuff, and I'm like, oh, like I just want to go home. I want to be with my family. I just want to feel safe. And it's like, not everybody who's traveling around the world has this like perfect, safe little to go back to. And
You can't
and
really
like
explain
that's
that to some people though, right? That's the
yeah,
difficulty because you have ties to your loved ones. But when your loved
yeah,
ones are so far away and time is moving on for both of you guys, but in different places, like there's a gap.
there is a gap.
I am like falling apart. Thank God this is like an audio form. I'm like completely I'm used to crying a lot, especially like I can cry on this podcast. It's not the first time, but I really want to thank you for sharing that experience, because we sometimes feel, at least for me, that I am going through this thing alone and no one can understand my experience. And I seem to be getting more and more examples of people who are going through my experience. And I feel like it's there's the added element of, oh, I'm gonna figure out my life because I'm in my 20s, and this added pressure of figuring yourself out financially and professionally, and who you are and your life with God after having gone through this ordeal of getting sober and having that, spiritual life. And yet I'm alone in a foreign country, you know, and I feel like and then you just start putting more pressure. At least for me, I start putting more pressure on myself that is involving me not feeling like I can't go back home. Um, and that's just kind of, yeah, it's devastating. I literally had a conversation with my mom like a week or two ago. I'm like, Mom, I miss you guys. Like I never do this. I never ever break down. And she told me, I can't come because of the war. And a part of me was like, how dare you?
Yeah.
You need to come because I want you to come. And on the one hand, I'm thankful because I'm here and I'm safe, right? On the other hand, I'm like, I don't like this. How do you accept how thankful you are and how grateful you are about what you have and what you have achieved, and yet at the same time, be like, actually, let me pause for a second. It's very, very difficult. I appreciate us kind of opening it up and you sharing about it. I'm out of commission. Pirate Mike, please take it away. I'm gonna cry for the rest of the podcast.
No, I think that it's, for me, it's at the heart of why we started this in the first place. And I think Morby, like the sentiment that you expressed is like this is the appropriate place for it, because that's one of the things that links us together. In a previous episode, and it sticks with me, one of the most meaningful maybe questions that they asked me was like, are you happy now that you're home? And I've been sitting with that, because there was like 20 years when I wasn't. And sure, when I came back, it was with family in tow, but for a majority of that, like I didn't have any relatives that were, a car drive away from me that I was like aware of or close to. So it very much felt like I was alone there and trying to make sense of it. And, over the course of like the few episodes that conversations that we've had, like on this platform, we drift into things about like America and what's that like, and being a foreigner and race. And sure, like it's easy to go into those rabbit holes, but it all ladders up to this same experience, because there's a lot of mixed emotions about being away from home. There's the excitement, but then there's also the like I remember there were 5 years when I didn't see my family, because I was trying to, it's like a green card thing. And when I finally did see them again, or when, like, I think my dad came to visit, it felt like it was something that was so overdue, there were a lot of feelings that were involved in that time. And then even when I came back here, conversations that I had with my sister, for me, things froze in time a little bit. I mean, it's so different than when I left, but there was a lot of catching up that I've still had to do, and things that my sister will say, like, you weren't here the last 20 years. So things that were going on with family, like you're just now seeing now, things that are going on, and just like life around here, you're just kind of getting used to now. I never adulted here. And so the three of us coming together now, like being at, and I know, like Morby, you're kind of like at a crossroads coming up, right? And so all those emotions are coming up, and it's we may not be able to relate to certain specificities, right, and circumstances, war, but parts of the experience are common, as people who've left like the boundaries of home and decided to try to carve out a life or an experience or settle someplace else. Like, it's a different kind of wiring, and it's a different kind of reconciliation that we have to do, different like discrepancies. Like you can't describe that to somebody who hasn't. I feel like this is deja vu going back to like episode 1, right? The like, take your higher power and fucking go. Take your freedom, take your higher power and go. And there are some times when, I can soar through the sky with that, but then, yeah, it was kind of powerful, Morby, like what you said about there's times when it's like just me and God alone. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so good. But it's actually, there's also like the flip side of it where, and I guess for me, when those moments are dark, there's a lip service idea of God in my head. But really I'm feeling very alone because I feel very alone. I feel lonely.
Yeah. Yeah, but these are the moments, right? These are the moments that, again, we romanticize. It may sound romantic, but you're in the middle of the night in your bed crying, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Mhm.
like, and then then it finally hit me over several times in the last year, especially in the last 6 months, of like, oh, like nothing, there is nothing else. There is nothing else in this life. All that you're doing here is bringing God into your day to day, to your little details, to this
Mm.
world. And that's what it's about. It's not what you do. It's how you bring God into what you do. Um, and that's very hard. And yet we're very fortunate to have that. And I do love how it's like the same but different circumstances, different costumes. Morbid, you mentioned Christmas. Passover is coming up, and I am mortified that I don't know, because I'm gonna do Passover basically alone, or at the local shul, the local synagogue here, not with family, and that's always difficult. Yeah.
It's different because you're in a different place, right? Like growing up, like all those settling things, like people who are back home, wherever that is, they have to go through it too, but there's an additional layer because we're somewhere else. Who like, yeah, I have an older brother who left at a young age too. And when I was, I don't know, like 16, 17 and causing a ruckus, like my parents thought it would be a good idea for the two of us to talk. Like he could talk some sense into me because he was also a black sheep for his generation of the family. And one of the things that he said was basically, you know, you're so focused on like these adventures and getting the fuck out of here. Like I got to tell you, one of the things that you're not going to expect is time that you spend away from home. As much as you feel about them right now, it's the whenever the phone rings at midnight, like for the last like 15, 20 years, I always wonder if it's the phone call that dad's died or somebody else's, you know, because you're just out of touch with your loved ones. And that came true for me. There's the additional emotion that comes with being far away, you know, from the people we love and miss and who love and miss us.
Maybe it's harder for me because I haven't accepted Jesus into my heart.
Are you
You
trying to
think
make a joke? Just cry. Just cry.
I'm like really crying. I did not expect this, honestly, because it's, at the beginning we started this, Mike, and I love that this is the end of the season. We started this for different reasons, but one of the reasons why we started this was a reason that I didn't even want to talk about, and we talked a little bit about it and a little bit more about it, and it kind of came into conversation, and because I'm so scared of people's comments, but a lot of it was about my grief, and kind of dealing with it. Um, and yeah, not sure what else to say about it now that I brought it up. A lot of it has been about that for me, and about kind of the release of that, I guess, through comedy. And you mentioned something at the beginning about Morbid, about you being an 80-year-old woman.
I'm an 80-year-old man, though.
Oh, an
Not
80-year-old man. Okay, my apologies for misgendering you. But this came up for me a few weeks ago. This statement exactly, because I was staying at John Barleycorn's house, as you do when you live close to the US. And
Yikes. I
we were
feel that.
talking. We were talking, and this memory came up for me. I don't remember what we were talking about, and I told him, I just remembered a good friend of mine once told me, Vey, we need to do like an exorcism for the 80-year-old woman that has taken place in your body. And I remember that statement, and that friend was murdered on October 7th. And I feel like a lot of this has been just a wonderful opportunity to have new experiences with new people, and seeing that life goes on and having that reflection. So I am very appreciative of that. Um, of that part, and being able to finally feel like at the end of the season that I can say, hey, I'm going through this grief. It doesn't mean that I cannot see other people's grief and I cannot see other people's injustices. But also I'm allowed to go through my own grief. And that's okay, I hope, with people. Should we lighten up and talk about food, Morbid, or do you wanna jump
I
in
mean,
and
I'll
cry
jump in and
fest?
say, like, this was my personal mission, was to draw you out, and you know that. So like I think this is the moment, and it's apropos, like at the end of the season. So the curtain's gonna drop, you know, the parade's gonna come in, and it'll be like, Vey, this is your life. Welcome to it. The big reveal moments.
Yeah. Oh man.
But sure, food works.
Food.
Is it kind of like Russian food over there? I'm just gonna make the hard left turn.
Please do, because I'm done for today.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
No, thank you, man, for sure.
What how do you feel about this crossroads coming up, Morby?
Oh my God. Well, my crush.
Like, is it the
Okay,
grief of
first.
leaving and staying, or both, or all of the
Oh
above?
God. Um, it's both.
Hmm.
I want to go back to the US because my family lives there. It has nothing to do with the US. And a lot of my friends who are from the US are like, I miss the US. I'm like, it's physically beautiful, but also kind of, I don't know, like, fuck that place. Like, which I
Yeah.
don't know, like,
No. I was telling Vey that,
there's,
like, I want to go
yeah,
back, but I miss the land.
I
Not
miss
so
the
much
land.
it's like my
I don't know
tie
what you
is to the
guys are
land.
talking about. The Chipotle is where it's at. I don't know what you guys are
Stop
talking about.
it.
I fucking love the States. I
Like,
went to Texas and everyone made fun of me in the group chat because because I ate Chipotle in like the capital of Tex-Mex food. I'm like, you know what, guys, fuck you. I don't get this luxury
exactly.
here.
Just do, just go be who you want to be in whatever. But yeah, like, Pirate Mike, as you know, I fell in love with the Philippines. And like, I love going different places and I love connecting with people. And if I had stayed in my hometown and kept going to in-person meetings and not done this hard left turn in my life, I never would have met you guys. I would have never gotten on that Zoom meeting. I wouldn't have met you. Like, the amount of people I've met by removing myself from the familiar has been awesome.
Hmm.
Um, and like, I love this up. I come from a very traumatized background. Um, and some part of me needs to specify that I'm not talking about normal USA, like I was traumatized, my mom didn't pay enough attention to me, which like is fine. Like, um, I it's weird for me to say this now, but I've survived very horrible and intense physical abuse and stuff. And like, who I am back home is like a lot of us in my family dynamic and who I was because of those events. And moving does not fix everything, as we've said, obviously, but it's such a gift to be able to see who I am without all of that stuff. And I know that like people don't always have to do that to figure out who they are, but like it is really powerful for me to just, because like I literally don't know who I am outside of the people in my family half the time. Um, so that's cool. And then I keep going to these amazing places and it like feels like it unlocks versions of myself that I didn't even know existed.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's
Slay
beautiful.
Queen.
And I love it. And I love it. I love it. I want to go do it again. And then I feel that shame and that fear creeping in of what you were saying, Mike, of like every time I leave, I'm leaving family. And I've been so scared that like I'm gonna get that call that my dad has died. And for me, I've loved traveling and I always have this paralyzing fear every time on a plane that like somebody I love is gonna die while I'm gone. as if me physically being there is going to stop them from dying.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like I feel so crazy when I say that. And it has happened before. Like it has happened before. Um, and still it's like, okay, bringing God back into this, it's like, am I staying here out of fear, or
Right.
am I staying here because I'm feeling called by love to be here? And I'm going home, and like my family and my friends think she's like home for good, and I don't actually know that. I, it feels so small because it's like the only thing that's blocking me off right now is fear, right? I don't have issues with a green card. I don't have issues with a war in my home. Like those aren't the things that are keeping me or bringing me home at
Yeah.
any given point. Um, but yeah, it does feel like a crossroads. Like I'm sad to leave. I've built a life here. I have a life here. Like some part of me is going to be left here
Yeah.
when I go home. And the person who's coming back is not the person who left. And like people love that consistency and they want you to be who you were in the past. And it's like, sorry, no, I can't be that person. And we all go through those changes, you know, but I feel like it's so apparent when you make the geographic move. Like every time we change, like that version of us dies, and that's not a bad thing, but like I don't know, there's mourning to be done, there's mourning to experience, and
Yeah.
yeah.
For
It's
sure.
change. All change involves some kind of grief or mourning, and like in one of the previous episodes, right? Like um I endured the incessant teasing of Vey about like my apparent hero's journey away from and then back home. But then I'm excited for you because that's something that you're experiencing as well. Like I can't help but feel like in terms of what I've been called to do in life, like I needed to leave in order for me to heal and grow into the person that I was. I just don't know if it was possible for me to have done that if I'd stayed. And that's just been part of my experience. I'm immensely grateful to be sharing a space with two people who have something similar, that they've gone through as well. But all the fears, all the fears that go along with that. And yet when we do get to the next stage, and that's where I'm excited for you, is like, this is something that you take with you, and it's so fucking powerful.
Yeah. And you do change, you do change. That's the wonderful thing. I remember I did go home for a little while there, but not because I wanted to. I had to go through a medical procedure, and I went home and I realized, oh, I'm not I'm not the same person. And it was so evident in all my relationships. I literally did the AA thing of like, hey, do you want to meditate with me, family members? And they looked at me like I went completely apeshit. But that's the thing, and you're not the same person, and a version of you does die. And I literally had to put a very painful boundary a few days ago to be like, hey, I'm actually not that person anymore. If you want to meet me now, that'll be great. But I can't be that person. That does not do justice to this wonderfully painful journey,
Hmm.
beautifully painful journey that I've been on for the past, I don't know, however several years. I don't. What's a sobriety date if not a celebration of ego? So I try not to think about that.
Or grace, or grace.
I'm sorry. He knows how I feel about sobriety coins.
Yeah, there's no I told you guys this after I listened to the first episode of the podcast. There's no McDonald's here, there's no Starbucks. there's
Outrageous.
there's like when I asked my co workers, because in the US, I was like, what do you, I'm like, what, I don't even know what you don't have, like what do you want, what can I bring you? And they wanted reusable Starbucks. Like that is currency here, that is elite status if you have a official Starbucks reusable tumbler.
Oh,
um
damn.
yeah, so that's what I brought them. And then actually when I was in the Philippines, because there's Starbucks everywhere, I went and bought them more. But it's a secret end of the year gift, so they don't even know yet. But like,
They
'cause
will now.
yeah, they're totally gonna listen to this. They don't even know that I'm an alcoholic. Everybody just thinks I'm like super sensitive to alcohol because oh my gosh, yeah, I've been offered so much alcohol. I've had it put in my hands. I've had people tell me if I don't drink, I'm like cursing their house. Um, yep. Even though vodka was not even big in this country until Russia invaded.
Mm.
Before then, they had alcoholic horse milk, which was like 3% alcohol. Oh yeah, there's a lot of fermented milks. There's like 6 different kinds of animal milks here. There's like camel milk, sheep milk, horse milk, cow milk, goat milk, all the milks. But to them they let get alcoholic.
Are you
So
getting overwhelmed?
I never drank the milk either because like I'm always like people hand me stuff and I'm like, is this alcoholic? Because at this point they don't even consider 3% alcoholic. Like the alcoholic horse milk is not alcoholic to them. So I always have to like put something in my mouth first and kind of like swish it around like, this could be fermented, but it could be alcohol. No, no, thank you. But the vodka, I'm definitely like, no. But in this culture, like 200 years ago, this older man was telling me that it was not common for people to drink alcohol until they were past the age of 40 because they like that would inhibit them from being strong-minded, strong-bodied warriors, which is like their whole thing, right? That's like their
Yeah.
whole legacy is being a warrior. But then and they had like the largest Tibetan Buddhist population in the world outside of Tibet. And then Russia came and ruined the party and murdered all the monks and like oppressed them. And they're like, sorry, you're oppressed, but like, here's $2 vodka. So it's okay now. And now, like, they literally think that vodka is part of their culture. Whereas, like, and things have changed like so intensely between the generations. Like, kids my age, I'm an adult, kids my age, versus like 40-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 80-year-olds have all gone through intensely different iterations of this country. And the memory of who they are has gotten so muddled because of Russia's influence, then Russia leaving, and like yeah, it's so crazy. But somebody was telling me that during the major lunar festival, like, yeah, like it was not common in the 19th century, as soon as early as like recent as that, for people to drink now. But now people are like, we're blah blahs, like we drink a lot. No, you don't. No,
That's
you
pretty
don't.
that's pretty amazing. So what, it's like it's religion or alcohol. And probably some other things. But like in terms of
Well,
like colonialism and oppression. This is season 2 material, Bay.
yeah, like
I've checked out once we started talking about milks. And now I'm like, I'm in the Passover vibe, so I'm like, all right, what do I need to get? Halav Israel, it's like kosher milk. It's like everything is super kosher for Passover. Anyway, I'm about you. What are we talking about?
I gotta tell you guys something else crazy. So one time I was at the grocery store with my coworkers and they have like little bottles of vodka at the checkout, you know, where you usually like have candy. And she buys one and we're in the middle of the workday. I'm like, girl, are you like because like we teach, you know, like we work with kids. If we were in an office, I would be like, man, but I wasn't judging. I was just kind of like, oh, like, are you having like a little drink?
Are you having a
Um,
little drink?
Because she does, she's a normal drink. Like she actually only has a little drink and then she's done. Baffling. But oh, this is for my altar at home. And she and I crack a bunch of jokes. Like we make jokes about her country and my country all the time. And so I started laughing. She's like, what? No, I'm serious. So in the country I'm in, for good blessings from like your Buddhist, because they like Buddhism has come back, but it's more performative now than like actual daily practice. Like you have your altar and you go get your blessing on Lunar New Year, and then you're like Buddhist only. So you take like a bowl and you pour some vodka in it and you offer it to your God and ask for things here. You give your God vodka here. God drinks vodka here.
I think it's pretty on brand with God. I think, Pirate Mike, do you think Yahweh drinks vodka?
Vodka's always been a very powerful thing for me.